Stop it whenever it's. You can just stop it.
Hello, today we are meeting at the IIT Alumni Center, our favorite beloved Bibliothek club, book club. We have a talk today. The presentation is on IPTA, Indian People's Theatre Association. It is very difficult to put the culture of an entire generation into a talk which has to be brief. As I said, it would be a brief survey of the period, and I will be just introducing the subject matter, the IPTA, Indian People's Theatre Association, and the Bengal chapter. And after that, I will give the reasons for its dissolution and the legacy that it continues to hold along with us. Now let us begin with a Gano Shongit, which was very popular during the IPTA period. Fade out. You just heard Paul Robeson with the famous Old Man River. Now, what is the connection between Old Man River and Bhupen Hazarika's Vistirno Dubare? The connection is both are protest songs. Bhupen Hazarika had met Paul Robeson in USA and was very much influenced by the Black human rights activist. And the song is about the endless flowing of the river, whether it is the Mississippi or whether it's the Ganga, and the river is non-caring as it flows on, looking apathetically at the struggles of the people, the despair of the people around it. This apathetic feeling is generally, it's definitely not going to be only attributed to the river. It is to the times that they were, times of turmoil, I should say, very, very difficult times. The beginnings of the movement was in the early 1940s, and it was a time of turmoil as the World War II raging across Europe, and the rise of fascism. There was the invasion of Russia, and this had a tremendous impact on Indian politics, Indian mainstream politics. British imperialism was a danger, and Mahatma Gandhi supported the cause of British imperialism because fascism is, after all, a worse enemy than communism. So this political, the event that was taking place and the others, for example, the great man-made famine of Bengal, 1943. It is called it's a man-made famine, as it, the British imperialist colonial imperialists were responsible for the famine that took place in 1943, where millions and millions of people died in Bengal alone out of sheer starvation. The naval mutiny and the INA trials, the Telangana movement, the Tebhaga movement, were also equally responsible for the vastly changing atmosphere, the socio-political, economic atmosphere in India. Of course, the Progressive Writers Association met in Mumbai, which was Bombay at that time, and the artists came together, creative thinkers came together and thought about contributing something to change the perspective of art in those times. Now, the Communist Party of India, it tried to propose other alternatives to the homogeneous idea of nationalism, of one India, India, which is one, but which is many too. You see, the concept of one India was proposed by Mahatma Gandhi. To him, it was national unity after freedom. But for many others, it was India which had multiple voices. India which could not or would not, freedom will not guarantee elimination of caste, class, language, region, gender, or economic divides. So this was very important. A radical cultural identity was the need of the hour. There was a need for a platform to bring in different and multiple voices, especially from the heartland of India, from the masses, from the marginalized. You see, this is what led to the concept of a new theater movement. But let me tell you, the Indian People's Theatre movement was not restricted to theatre alone. It had a tremendous impact, an immense and deep impact on art and culture and consciousness of an entire generation, and also much, much later. Literature, theatre, films, sculpture, photography, everything was inspired by the movement. So, it was not only a movement for theatre and was not definitely to be narrowed down to that interpretation. New aesthetics of art and the artist's responsibility towards the audience, towards the people, was important at this juncture. It was also, as I said, an in syncing with global cultural activism. You heard in the beginning of the program about Paul Robeson and his influence on Bhupen Hazarika. There was influence of a lot of Marxists, people like Gorky from Russia, and many more. And slowly there was a new kind of an evolution, a new kind of a new aesthetics of art, where it changed the whole cultural consciousness of generations. Even today, we continue the legacy of the IPTA, though it has ceased to exist. It had a very, very short, tenure. By 1948, it was almost disbanded, and the CPI was made illegal. And so the IPTA had ended. People like Shambhu Mitro and others had exited. Bijon Bhattacharya, they exited the IPTA. But let me just give you a little more about the history of why there was the coming together of the IPTA in Bengal, especially. You see, from the early 20s, from the early 1920s, Bengal was having a kind of a vacuum. There was politically, there was a vacuum, and the moderates had gone. People like Surendranath Banerjee, the Lal Bal Pal, they were no longer there. And with the partition of Bengal, and then the transfer of the capital from Calcutta to Delhi, and the rise of Gandhi, the rise of non-cooperation movement, the Quit India movement that followed in 1930s, it made Bengal, which was always in the forefront of political activism against the British, feel that they were not doing much. The power had already shifted to somewhere else. And this was felt by the Bengali intellectuals. Even the Muslim League was not much active during that period. And the national as well as the international turmoil.
Do you want to listen? It's about the...
And the brief appearance and disappearance of Subhash Chandra Bose. All these things created, as I said earlier, a vacuum in Bengal politics. And the intellectuals who were mostly leftist oriented, many belonged to the Communist Party of India, they felt that it was time for them to move into that vacuum and create a cultural wing for presentation of their ideals or ideologues. However, let me tell you again that the IPTA was not actually only a cultural wing of the CPI. Anybody who was an artist who felt the need for a change was involved in the IPTA movement. And it was pan-India. It was not just only for Bengal, it was all over the country. From Bombay in the west to Calcutta, Assam in the east, from north of India to Telangana, to Andhra, and even down south to Tamil Nadu. In Telangana, you had the Barakatha by Raja Rao, and the art of Barakatha evolved quite quickly. People were all over the country, all creative people felt that the need came for a change in the mindset of people through art, through culture, as I said, through everything. And of course, theater was the centerpiece. Now, let me tell you something. theater was, or art was dictated by more than 200 years of colonial structure of education and thought in our country because of the British rule. So indigenous culture, indigenous voices and art was lost in the process. For example, in Calcutta, you had a very popular proscenium kind of a theater, but the indigenous ones, like the Torja, the Kobigan, the Jatra, these were no longer accessible to the people or to the mainstream. So theater, proscenium theater was mainly a star-oriented theater. You had Shishir Bhaduri, you had earlier Girish Ghosh, they were stalwarts. But it was according to the colonial structure, the colonial tradition of theater, it was definitely not people's theater. It was only a star-oriented theater. They were all stars. When you look at it on stage, you see the stars dominate. Okay, so what IPTA brought in was people's theater stars the people. This was their, actually, this is what made them. People's theater stars the people. And as you find that the logo is that of a Nagar Vadak. This logo was created by Chitto Prasad, a very famous sculptor. And the Nagar Vadak is drumming. He's drumming a huge drum and he's calling people, he's calling the masses. And he's calling because people need to come, the common people need to hear the voice, needs to hear the change that is going to come. They need to know that it is time to rise against exploitation. It is time to rise against colonial imperialism, against establishment, autocratic rule, the brutality of regimes, and arouse them to understand their rights and their duties. That is why you find the Nagar Vadak who is drumming, and it is such an apt logo for a people's theater. So it is definitely people's theater stars the people. And I will now like to proceed to how the IPTA was not a bourgeois culture, bourgeois kind of a movement. You see, the protests, the peace marches, the art, the songs gave birth to a new type of consciousness. And it was the intended beneficiary was not the bourgeois public, but the hapless, voiceless, the deprived, the exploited, the struggling, the despairing common man. But where is the common man in theater, in art at the time? Because as I said, the proscenium theater or art, it was dominated by stars. What was the theme? The themes were generally mythological. Themes were satire. Themes were of kings and queens, of love and romance. Maybe some bit of comedy here and there. But the people was missing. The people were missing. Now, the intention was not just to make a theater. It is to bring out, it is to go deep into the heart of India, the heartland of India, and tell the stories. You know, so the need for traveling art, you know, IPT is also about traveling art and not proscenium art. It's about going to the heartland of India, across regions, across language barriers, across classes, across genders, going to the very heart, the villages. And that is why the need was for traveling art across the country. This is where Bijon Bhattacharya's Nobanno came into being. This is how it came into being, and I'll tell you the story. Bijon Bhattacharya was working for a periodical, and his work was to report all his travels. Okay, so from the grassroots level onwards. And they felt that the need was for organizational support at the grassroots level onwards. So the movement should have not a hierarchical basis, but spread into the grassroots level onwards. Bijon Bhattacharya's seminal play, you can show the PPT, next PPT also. Bijon Bhattacharya's seminal play, something which revolutionized art or the language of theater, was, yeah. So it was Nobanno. He wrote other plays called Joban Bondi and Kolongo, but it was Nobanno which was the watershed. It was completely revolutionary in the way theater was taught in India. Bijon Bhattacharya was traveling to different parts for reporting. And he would find people were starving, they were dying. They were not exactly, I would not start with dying. I would say that extremely poor, famished, despairing people on the roads. Every day he would go to work and every day he would find them and he would not look up. He would travel with his head down because of the sadness and the humiliation he felt that he couldn't do anything for people, for them on the roads, the homeless people on the roads, starving, absolutely. Families under the sun, under the skies, during rain, during storm, during sun, during the high heat of summer. So as he was passing, one day, he saw a family was talking about a beautiful, in a beautiful way, an elderly couple were talking about, do you remember the smell of rice last year at this time of the year? Did you smell the fragrance of rice? So he was shocked that when they were unable to get even a few morsels of rice and were starving, entire families on the road, absolutely in a very dire situation, dire straits. They were thinking of their rice. A couple of days later, as he passed the same place, he heard that the husband had passed away. This was a very, very defining moment for Bijon Bhattacharya. And he felt that, what have we done? What are we doing? And he felt that this is enough. I have to do something about it. It is not theater came first. It is what he had experienced, and he wanted the voice of the people. He wanted exactly that social reality staring at you and you're not looking at it. You are not seeing that people are falling on the road and dying. Now, how did this happen? Because of the man-made famine that we talked about during the introduction. All the food grains were being taken away. Of course, there was a little bit of drought and there was not enough rainfall. But the entire food grains were just simply transferred to the World War, where the British soldiers were fighting the Germans. So that is how the food was continuously going away. And there was also hoarding. And Nobanno is a play which deals with this fact that the farmer is not able to neither eat his own grain or buy it, because grains are even more costlier than gold because of hoarding. People are hoarding like anything. So Pradhan Samadar, he goes he has almost become mad, out of starvation. His grandson is dying. So they think that it is the cities which will provide them food for succor. That is the idea of the village people. We don't have anything here, so we have to go to the city. In the city, in search of food, that they find that far from it, there are hordes and hordes, thousands and thousands of people are coming to the city to get some food. And there is no food. People are not just willing to part with rice. So what do they want? They want the gruel that you throw away after you cook rice. And that is, in Bengali, it's called mar, fan. So from door to door, you will have famished skeletons, women with kids. They're all skeletons. They will be only asking, fan de ma fan, fan de ma fan, just that much. And while Tripti Mitro, the wife of Shambhu Mitro, she was a very, very famous actress herself. Tripti Mitro, when she enacted Nobanno, she said, I didn't have to act. It was real life for me because I see it every day. She just said one or two incidents. For example, she said that they would cook huge rice in, they used to live in messes, and they used to cook rice in huge pots, and they used to throw water out from the drain. So these refugees from the villages, they would come at a particular time to catch with the little bowls or whatever they had, even their hands, that gruel that was falling, that rice water that was falling. And that is the stuff they had only once in a day. And one day she saw a lady. She was sitting with all the starving skeletal children all around her. And she had the bowl of fan. And then one day she just had it herself. And the children were kind of, clambering and begging her for the food. And she just pushed them away. And once she drank it, then she realized, it came as a shock to her, that what have I done? Because every day she has been starving, every day. So today she had it. And then she wept like anything. So these are things from real life that the actors and actresses didn't have to really enact in a play like Nobanno. In Nobanno, what happens is that the very reality, the harshness is there on your face. It comes like a sledgehammer. And the people, the intention of Bijan Bhattacharya was to shock. Please be shocked. Please, shake yourself from your stupor. This is life. There's no melodrama. And the actors and actresses were actually people from the roads, from the streets, starving people, skeletal people. They were all there. And the tremendous, the cries of despair, the real trauma that was projected on the stage, this made the Calcutta public kind of shake out of sleep. Like, what is this? Is this real? Yes, it is real. You see, this is real. This is the world around you and you're not looking at it. Please look, wake up. So this is where the new aesthetics of the social responsibility of the artist begins to come out in IPTA. I can go on and on for Nobanno. I'll just end with a little bit, because you're running short of time. There are so many things to say. In Nobanno, finally, what happens is Pradhan Samadar loses his grandson, and the women of the family, one of them becomes a prostitute. It is very inevitable because to get your rice, to get your family running, you need to sell yourself also. So this was what was happening, and parallelly at that time. So you had no food. You get food because food is not, it's not that it's unavailable. It is available. You cannot buy it because you're poor. And you're poor because you're a farmer. So that reality, when it came to Shomadar's family, finally they thought that enough is enough. We will die, but we cannot go on compromising our dignity like this. So they go back to the village. Now, it's an entire story. It's not possible to give an entire running commentary of the story. They go back to the village. They feel that we will toil, and other people are also coming back. They feel that we will toil. The grass will not be green now. Bijan Bhattacharya never says tomorrow there will be a big harvest. Nobanno means fresh harvest, new rice. So there will not be a harvest festival tomorrow, but that sense that we have to stay where we are and we have to do what we have to do. We'll till the soil, we will see what comes out of it, but we will not sell ourselves. Our dignity, our self-pride. This will not go away. So this is how the play ends, not really with hope, but with a margin of hope, I would say. Now, as I said, not just Bijan Bhattacharya, I mean, Shambhu Mitra, he was also part of Nobanno. He directed the play, was involved in it. And he also, produced Chinno Mool and other directed other films in, you can see, in Hindi. And I will come a little later to what Bimal Roy did with his Do Bigha Zameen. I think a lot of you are very, very, you know the movie. Balraj Sahni did a splendid performance as the rickshawala, Shambhu, who had to almost sell his land because he could not pay the debts. So it's again a big story, which will be very difficult for me to again redo it, because I have to kind of come to a place where I really need to tell you why such a movement with such stalwarts, stalwarts, as you'll see from the projection, that anybody who was somebody with any stalwart in any area of art was involved. Like, as I already told about Bijan Bhattacharya, Shambhu Mitra. Shambhu Mitra later on, of course, went to he went away from IPTA, left the IPTA, and he went to found his own theatre group called Bahurupi. His daughter recently passed away, Shauli Mitra. There was Ritik Ghatuk's enormous movies on social realism. I can't discuss what Ritik made. There was Sholil Chaudhary's musical compositions, Hemango Bishash, Devabroto Bishash. Hemango Bishash is from Assam, Devabroto Bishash from Bengal. They created folk and protest music. I talked about Bhupen Hazarika already when I began. And of course, in Bombay, you had Chetan Anand, K. Abbas, Prithviraj Kapoor with his Prithvi Theatres. Even Ravi Shankar, he created music for Nicha Nagar and Dharti Ke Lal. They won awards and recognition in international cinematic arena. But now I would like to come to a portion where I would like to say how and why this short-lived movement disintegrated. Now, as I told you, that the motto was People's Theatre Stars the People. The germs of collapse was within the origin of the same People's Theatre Stars the People. Because instead of people's movement, it became dominated by the same stars who were brought in for the movement or who came to the movement. So instead of the people becoming the star, which was the original intention of such a mass movement, it was dominated by the stars. Obviously, people like Shambhu Mitra, Bijan Bhattacharya, Ritik Ghatuk, Devabroto Bishash, many more, Sholil Chaudhary. Sholil Chaudhary had to go underground because he was protesting too much. So the stars were dominating. It was not their intention, but it became a starry kind of an atmosphere. And there was a clash between the Communist Party and the various stars. The Communist Party till the times of P.C. Joshi was kind of very supportive of the general idea of this movement. But once Comrade P.C. Joshi left, just a second, please. Once P.C. Joshi left, there was a tremendous rancor between the heads of the whoever ran the Communist Party at the time and the stars, who felt that they were appropriated by the party in the name of IPTA, and the individualism of the contributors, of the creative artists, was kind of hampered by, were regularly controlled by the who's who of the Communist Party of India. So you have people telling Sholil Chaudhuri that this is not the way you can make a music. Okay, they'll tell Debobrito Bishash, you cannot sing that kind of a song. It is westernized. You're using Western percussion. You're doing this, you're doing that. And this was not acceptable. See, it is not just a revival of folk or tradition or indigenous. It is also a mixture of the contemporary. Okay. So what some people would continuously criticize, the creative thinkers of their own party, that you are moving away from the mass. And they would say, no, we are not. We are doing our own thing, and probably in the right way. Now you can have your own questions. I leave it to you. At the same time, Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister's new cultural policy, also appropriated them. So they're appropriated 2 times. One by the CPI in the name of IPTA, and number 2 by Nehru's new cultural policy, which made all the stars, well, you are welcome to sit on the, the first row and get the accolades from me. So Ravi Shankar left. Many, they started leaving. They got appropriated by that national concept, which is not the original idea of the movement. Another thing which caused dissension is the hierarchical thing started in the IPTA, because people like, a man who would serve a funeral service, you'll be attending a funeral, or a man who would be making shoes from hides, tannery, would work in a tan, or a blacksmith. When they came to join, and the Brahmins or the higher castes and the intellectual elites who were dictating the activities, art or otherwise, of the movement, like this should be done, that should be done, they were segregated. Like today we are living in a commune. I think you do my cleanups, you do this, you do that. So they were there to provide support to the same bourgeois intellectual elitism of the movement. So what happened is that what the original intention was to make it a traveling art and give it a grassroots level organizational support could never happen. So it became the same top-heavy, bureaucratic, hierarchical organization, starry, in fact. So the stars were all over the place. The bureaucracy was all over the place. The people were missing. But again, I would say that yes, 1948, there was no IPTA. But the IPTA did not end there. The IPTA did not end there. Because the changes that brought in the mindset of people I already have, for those who have come a little later, it was there in literature, theater, film, sculpture, photography, everything. Anything and everything. The change was there. It was, the transformation was there. So you cannot go back to the colonial mindset anymore. So even when Badal Sarkar was making his plays, we had earlier had presentations on that, when Sardar Hashmi was doing his street plays and he was killed. Okay, so activism was there. Change in thought, in cultural consciousness was there. That was never. That has continued with us. I'm yet to end this, but I would like to again add that, see, it's not that the people were never involved. There were some negativities, but at the same time, the protests, the peace marches, And the involvement gave birth to a new generation of people who, as I said, they tried to rise against exploitation, against colonial imperialism, as well as they also against any autocratic regime. The IPTA also had extremely strong contributions, like they contributed in bringing peace in Assam and Bangladesh during the language riots and atrocities between communists. And they also protested international events like Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. And for Bhuka Hai Bengal, it gathered huge funds in the campaigns Bhuka Hai Bengal all over India. And through the spirit of India, through Eternal India, dance dramas, etc., they tried to bring inclusiveness in folk, traditional and contemporary culture. So definitely, these things remain of IPTA. Now, about another part is the mass music or Ganoshongit, of which we will hear snippets of some of the Ganoshongit. It's called Ganoshongit or Jana Sangit, mass music, also called choir music. Ruma Guho Thakurta, Shalil Chaudhuri, Bhupen Hazarik, and many more had contributed to that. These are songs of revolt, songs of protest. They are inspirational. This movement, actually, you listen to the songs and you'll see that they are not just negative. They're actually giving hope, inspiration, moral power, inner strength, and building up a collective conscience or consciousness to fight against exploitation, suppression, repression of any regime, whether it's colonial or whether it is autocratic establishments. And it definitely brought back dignity to human existence, the existence of human beings. It is very relevant. I'll just conclude here with why IPTA is still relevant. Just read a Live Mint essay by Sudhanva Deshpande, and he talks about writing when Sardar Hashmi was killed in the streets doing his theater. A toxic, I'm quoting him, a toxic idea of India seems to be throttling us. Instead of moving towards bridging inequalities, we are talking of the present time, not of the past, and alleviating injustices, some Hindutva forces seem bent upon increasing disparities and sharpening tensions. It has become all the more critical to recall our secular and radical legacies today and to refashion them. Now, he is referring to the assault on, quotes, unquote, our private and public lives, diktats over what we can eat or not eat, wear or not wear, an assault of mediocrity on our cultural and intellectual institutions, efforts to police people's lives and poison spewed against minorities, direct all attacks on artists and creative people like Perumal Murugan and many more, and so on and so forth. And this daily bombardment has dulled our senses and we are no longer shocked. Are we shocked by what's happening? We are surprised. We feel bad, but we are not shocked. But that generation did get shocked. Some people did want to change things around them. And that is how the IPTA's legacy, I think, will live on in our minds and hearts forever. I appeal to you to think of the IPTA, not with your heads, but with your hearts and souls. Thank you very much. I'll present some songs, the Ganoshongit, just to justify how passionate people were when they were in the movement. So we will start from Pratimadir Bhasha, a little bit of everything. Okay, this was by Debobroto Bishwas, who was one of the stalwarts of the IPTA movement, and this was a song by Sholi Chaudhary. And yes, I forgot to mention Jyotirindra Moitro and Navajiboner Khan. Fantastic. I mean, they were just boiling with anger and resentment, and they want to just make people boil and just take it out on the whosoever, the colonial masters. And no, we are not humiliated. We'll not get insulted again. This is our protest, and we'll break everything apart. Next, we'll do a little bit. This is the time where the naval mutiny the naval mutiny did result in a lot of tumults, reactions all over India. This is Sholi Chaudhary introducing the song. So it's not Gandhi. There are many things that attributed to the British being pushed out. So in this song, they're talking about the waves of the sea. They're rising and rising and rising, and the prison gates are opening up. And there is a new dawn that's coming out. As I said, it's all about having hope, not just anger. Do Bhi Gazamini you can play. I'll just flip forward it a little bit. Forward it a little bit. Forward it a little bit. A lot of songs like this in Hindi, right? They come a lot. A lot of songs by Ravi Shankar and Salil Chaudhary. These are social realism films that were path-breaking. Yes, Tamil also. No? Tamil also. At that time, it was I think this was sung by Lata Mangeshkar. Fade out. Obviously, you can attune yourself to the song. I'm now bringing to you a song by Himango Bishwas called John Henry. Yes, this is a song where you can hear the sounds of the hammer. This is John Henry is a black man, and he's building a tunnel on the railroads, and he's competing finally with a steel driver. And he says that, and the colonial master says that you are simple black man. What can you do? We have got machine, and you're simple black. Come on, nigger, you'll be dead. He said, okay, before dying, I'll prove that I am faster than the steel driller. And he proves that he is faster than the steel driller, but in the process, he sacrifices life. This is a beautiful song. You see the peppy tone. You see the variety of music. the lyrics as well as the styles, they change from song to song. They're not homogeneous. This became the May Day protest song. John Henry. It's a ballad, so it will continue. I have to stop. I'll go to the next song, Kanan. Well, wait 1 second. I will do a little bit of Shankho Chil, and I'll close with O Alor Pathojatri. Too many songs, I just cannot present all of them. Shankho Chil is about the Shankho Chil is a bird, the symbol of peace. And this is during the Nagasaki, Hiroshima bombing. I'll just give you a little introduction to the song, that's alone, because it's not possible to show how disturbed the world becomes with this kind of a harakiri by Western powers. Again, a different kind of a style and song. Hemangu Biswas is with Bhupen Hazarika and Jyoti Prasad Agarwal, the stalwarts of the movement in Assam. I think I'll close with Alor Pathojatri. You can take a look and listen to the songs when you go home. Like it's very beautiful, but I'm sorry, our times are just kind of getting over very soon. This is a very relevant song. This is talking about hope at the end of a dark tunnel. Peace, hope, and get inspired to be better yourselves and do better to others. Oh, Alur Pathojatri, you see the Alo, you are walking towards the light. There, we shall overcome one day. Shobita Chaudhary and Salil Chaudhary. And poem. This song actually tells you that you're tired, oh traveler. You're weary. This is a dark night. But carry on your work. Carry on that flag of hope. Do not despair. Carry on. Book bedhe with your heart fortified with new hope. Just go on and on. Surely there will be hope. There will be a beautiful world, a far, far beautiful world than you see around you now. It will be there. It is coming. See, there is dawn. Thank you so much.
Bah, bah. Wonderful.
Thank you, Kanan. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Hello, Ma.
Yeah. Names, Kanan, all the names. She wants to see the personality.
Share it in some way with the group because I'd like to read up more.
I think
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
online was saying something. Someone's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a virtual
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
How come Satyajit Ray's name is not there? He was not.
Satyajit Ray was not involved with IPTA directly speaking. No. He was, Satyajit Ray, Shambhu Mitra, they were at the same time. But Satyajit Ray was not in the IPTA. He was not involved.
Okay.
Just like Utpal Dutt was originally not with the IPTA. He was doing his English theatre. But then he felt that what am I doing is not really correct. I should be involved with the masses. So he changed and was indirectly influenced. By the time 1948 IPTA was over, but the legacy remained. So everybody was involved. Everybody was influenced by it. Some like Ritik Ghotuk was involved into it. They were workers. They were communists. Satyajit Ray was not a leftist or a communist, so to speak. Okay. So this was culturally a radical wing. So Ray was never radical, so to speak. And he was not involved in the movement. I'm not saying he was not influenced by it. He was not involved directly.
But social realism and neorealism falls in that category.
Yeah.
If you take the one that we are all familiar with, Dhoti Gazameen, Bimal Roy obviously was involved with this.
Yeah, he was.
But it is not a revolt movie. It is a socially realistic movie, it's a realism. And I could compare it with Ray, as she says, in the urban setting. If you take urban setting,
No, what we are trying, what we are trying to say is, what we are trying to say is, what if you see in a flashback or in a retrospective, you will see social realism has always been there.
Yeah.
It was not there. So in theatre, it was not there, definitely.
No.
In films, it was not. Hardly any films was there.
Are we talking only about theatre?
No,
We are talking about films, obviously.
No, everything. As I said, IPTA is not theatre. It began as somebody who wanted to express through theatre, but it influenced everybody in literature, films, sculpture, photography,
So the parallel I
music, everything.
The parallel I can think of is Karnataka theatre, Kannadiga theatre, for example. There are many such examples. Karant and people like that. That's where you really find the similar type of.
Yeah, what happened is earlier, because of the colonial superstructure we had of education and culture, it was controlled and had that heritage. We were losing touch with the indigenous cultures, with the folk forms, with the traditions that we had. The Barakatha in Telugu, the Jatra in Bengal, okay, and many forms in different regions. We were losing touch of that. The mainstream was not in sync with what the indigenous art form, folk form was producing at that time.
But since you said that it sort of dissipated after the 50s.
1948, yeah.
That it actually didn't dissipate, but it took on different.
I told you that it never went away. The movement collapsed, like people left for various reasons, political and individual reasons. Okay, Ravi Shankar left, Shambhu Mitra left, Bijon Bhattacharya left, Ritik Ghotuk was not okay with it. So the movement, and also as I said, CPI was made illegal. So the group, the IPTA disbanded, but even today you have IPTA all over India. If you go to the IPTA page, you'll find that every state has a representation of IPTA. And overall, the whole consciousness of people changed. That's what about the contribution of the movement.
This leftist philosophy, etc. aside, are you relating this only to the Communist Party? Or are you saying that people who are not necessarily radical like they do not have the contribution in a similar way to the movement of the revolt against, shall we say, whatever it may be in this case, like, oppressed?
I am talking only about the IPTA, its origins and its legacy, which doesn't mean that any other people are not thinking similarly. As I said, it's also something which was in sync with the global changes. Like I brought in the name of Paul Robeson and others. It is a cultural activism which was global, which was regional, which was national. And the IPTA itself was, the name suggests that somebody already formed, supposed to have formed it. It became a cultural, radical cultural wing of, it is still a wing, cultural wing of the CPI. But as I said earlier, anybody who was creative, anybody who was a thinker, anybody who was an intellectual, anybody who was an artist and was quite a name. If you go to the IPTA page, I had actually made a voice recorded long speech, which I know it is not possible to, I mean, just to let you know, because another 1 hour will go. If you listen to that, you will find out that there were hundreds of people who were involved in the process.
That's exactly what I want.
Hundreds of people.
It's a movement.
I have given only the Bengal chapter a small survey, a small glimpse.
No, I would like to think that
Yeah.
you don't put things in boxes. Like IPTA is obviously where it started and gave a name and it's identified as IPTA. But the movement is far wider.
No, no, no. You are mistaking me absolutely, sir. What I have clearly stated is that what was not there, the IPTA brought into focus. It is not that nobody in Kannada or in Marathi was not making anything, or in Assam was not doing anything else.
You
No.
misunderstood me. I am not saying
No.
that IPTA did not give focus, they gave focus. I am trying to say that I agree with you that really didn't dissipate. What they did probably started many other such movements and many other.
No, it did not start
That's what I was
movements.
trying
Like
to say.
say,
I'm only adding to your thing. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that.
no, what has happened is, see, Sardar Hashmi's street plays, or anybody else in, see, Vijay Tendulkar's plays, Girish Karnad plays, everybody. But they were not in 1941 or 42, right? So it was there, like, it came out 1948, the thing had, okay, today's Bibliothek dissipates after today, okay. That does not mean this, we go home and we finish up with Bibliothek. We continue to think of books, we continue to read books, we continue to do our activism, we continue to fight with each other, we continue to find out what brings us closer. That things, that continues.
I just want to make think that it is not necessarily only
This
activism.
time of folks, anyone wants to order tea, coffee, like, Dubani, whatever, please order.
My focus is on the IPTA, what it was, how it historically came into being, the political vacuum and the cultural vacuum in Bengal, and how it had its decline after influencing not only their generation, but generations across all forms of art and culture. However, there were some anomalies, there were some dissensions, which made it not what it was intended, like a people's movement. IPTA theatre, people's theatre stars the people, where people would have been for the people, by the people and of the people. That kind of thing we are yet to find. I mean, in our country, that kind of mass involvement has yet to happen.
So I have something in
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for that very spirited and riveting presentation, which was lacking in this digital space.
Absolutely, that's why I wanted
Absolutely
to.
refreshing to have something like that. Thank you for that. My question pertains to what you say about this legacy. At this point of time, you must be familiar that even in Tamil popular culture, there is the folk forms of the Opari is being revived by artists who are kind of blending Ghana music and along with like ethnomusicological forms like Opari, and these are like basically the Ghana form of Rudali. And in that effort, a certain Ghana association was formed where the youth started integrating, and you have this entire movement that's going on amongst the youth. So when you say that the IPTA still continues to exist in the sense that the legacy continues, can you say something about the younger generation? In what way is it interacting in the contemporary scenario?
Yeah.
To take inspiration from this protest music,
Yeah.
but also bringing in perhaps some more relevant contemporary forms to it and sort of a revivalism. Is there such an attempt?
Overall, I find that the IPTA has chapters in every city of India. You can find it out from the IPTA thing itself, generally run by the leftists. The left, definitely in Calcutta, it is run by the leftists, the IPTA chapter. It is there. However, every college in India, you'll find, not every college, many colleges in India, you'll find that they are doing street theatre of Badal Sarkar. They are doing every regional theatre, what you have mentioned. It is not just only songs. I did not say songs. Songs was just part of the protest, the peace rallies. They were part of it. Ganashangit was just one part. Theatre was just one part. Film was just one part. Sculptor, the sculpting was just one part. The Chitu Prasad's, the cut, the way he had made the logo, and the Swadhan Deshpande's organization, I forget the name. Yeah, the logo was inspired by that, where there is a fire, where there's something. I mean, people, please read the Live Mint essay, what I had read in the end, the legacy that has been left behind by Live Mint essay. I'll just give you the name a little. So in the youth in colleges, not maybe in schools, but definitely in colleges, maybe in the IITs, they are definitely aware of their indigenous cultures and the indigenous folk expressions and all these things. IPTA meant everything. They wanted to integrate, like in a place they'll have the Bengali Dhaki given the same place as a classical singer. Like in the same festival. Nowadays we have festivals everywhere, where Kanan would be going for speak mackays, where everybody of all sorts of musicians, all sorts of people are doing everything, are coming together. But this was not there earlier. Something was bratto, something was not ours. That kind of thing was there in the intellectual elitism of that some people. I'm not saying the masses were not, the folk was not there. It was there. It is still there. Definitely the youth must be reviving it and carrying it forward with them. But what the IPTA legacy is important nowadays is that we must, the voice of protest is lost. Folk art is okay. Voice of protest is lost in various situations in life. As I told you, I read that piece in the end. Wherever there has been injustice, social, economic, cultural, political, our protest is not that strong. People's protest is not there. We are afraid.
I think where the difference is from what you said, that is, I feel that IPTA was very top, it came to the top and went to the bottom, but this, what you're talking about now,
Yeah,
the Ghana is right from the street, is going up.
it's going up. That's
There's
it.
a difference, it's like rap,
No, what I'm trying to say is what the intention was became something else, but the intention was to be all inclusive and heterogeneous.
It came from the people who were.
They directed, obviously the people were too starving.
Which is why it died.
Yeah,
It is dying
they were
out.
starving, they were not eating properly, there was no organizational depth, there was no grassroots level involvement in carrying the culture down up to that level. So that did not become a whole mass movement.
That is why.
To some extent, yes. Yes, to some extent, yes. But what she is saying that yes, these forms are there and people are taking it out.
No,
It
but
has always been there.
my emphasis is actually on protest music and how protest music is being interpreted, or in the sense in what way does it become a part of music subculture
Yeah.
that's been taken up
Yeah.
by the youth. And I'm more specifically, thank you for your elaboration, but what I intended to ask was how is it in West Bengal? Like I know a little bit about what's happening in Tamil Nadu. Even in Karnataka, there is a lot of this music that's
See,
being
all
generated.
this music.
Let me finish. just
Yeah,
a
sure,
second. So, so in that sense, I'm wondering, like she said, it's from the streets, just like that, from the streets to the. So, is there any transformation in terms of that legacy? Because yes, we know IPTA is well established. We know its legacy. We know that it's inspired a lot of other people. Is there a reinvention of this tradition? Is there some?
Can I add to her thing? Do you think that it's possible that it has, because it's such an important or such a part of the Communist Party, and as you say, it's always there. I mean, it is when you go to leftist link, it is there, right? It comes up. So because of that therefore it is not trickled down or
No.
it's not. It's
No,
like flat.
my, whatever I have seen, those who have been in the party, all of them left. So everybody did their own work by themselves. So there was complete individualism and no controlling of free flowing creativity anywhere. So it was relegated. I mean, it was relegated, it was obscure. Communist Party is no longer in power and nobody is bothered about Communist Party anymore, in Bengal at least. So that is relegated. It became an all India, pan India phenomenon. It also was in sync with global cultural activism. And just a little bit of what she wants to say. The thing is, every generation has its own burden. Our generation has a different burden, but I don't think we have the same circumstances, same socio-political, economic crisis or events that was there in the 1940s or early 50s. So our generation will not react, or our X generations are not reacting likewise, definitely. So there will be different reactions to different things. But I mean, through these kind of music, at least my generation were inspired. But my son's generation is not really that much influenced. I can say that definitely. They're not influenced by, there is some little bit of Jibanmukhi Gan, but by Shumon Chattopadhyay, Kobir Shumon. But I think that's more into pop and different kinds of stylistically different modern way of thinking of music, if you say music. Rather than inventing music which is not my music, it is your music, her music, the man of the streets music, the farmer's music, the miner's music. It should be there. But I don't think we urban youth, young people are really in sync with that kind of a word, are they?
In Tamil Nadu,
I think very much so. Also in Nagaland.
I will be very happy if they are.
In different parts of Northeast India right now, not just exactly in Telangana, like there's like tradition, the way we understand tradition and legacy is slowly starting to change. Not only in India, I can say a little bit in like the Baltics, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, the younger generations are actually going back to their original, to their ethnic roots and to the music that goes on there. So in that sense, right now, especially I think in Tamil Nadu, it's very, very active. Especially
Telangana, it's very
yeah, with Aligarh,
Mumbai also.
even in Mumbai, there's Gully Rap, like there's Divine, and there are so many other people. In Karnataka, there's a very active rap scene. In Telangana, there's a very active rap scene. Like I'm just taking rap as an example because that's what's going on right
Not only
now.
rap,
Not just rap, like
just like, for example, after the bifurcation of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, what has happened? See, the way Telangana people speak the dialect, it is a dialect of Telugu. And the Andhra Telugu is very different. So now what Telangana is doing, they're writing textbooks in that dialect. So if you go to Telangana school, Telugu medium school in Telangana, the textbook will be in the Telangana dialect. So, in Jushundo, Yeraboyundro, okay? So that more than that,
Teaching
it's
the
Deccan,
local
not
language.
even Urdu. It's actually Deccan. So it is, and it is the songs that they are using, because though Bhadra and all of them have sort of disappeared now, but that remnants of that is still there, right? Because at the grassroots level, it is still very strong. It is very, very strong in
The
Telangana.
grassroots movement has evolved in a different way, like the others were mentioning. There was a moment when there was this top-down kind of an
It
effort.
started like that, but
But
now
then
it is moving
And
this way.
see now, but we are almost talking about a century late. A century has passed. After that, now we have this, not bottom up, but our
Also-
expression for us kind of.
No, it is also very feudal.
These are all
oriented.
these are all
These are all feudal. When you
big.
You see, at that time, the Tebaga and the Telangana movement just came after that, and the Naxalite movement also followed. So all the traditions are
So
there.
that is why it is very strong. Telangana has a very strong anti-feudal movement. By Andhra, it had settled by then. But Telangana was still very poverty, very, very poor compared to Andhra. And it is still feudalistic. Not that Andhra is non-feudalistic, but parts of the Godavari belt are still like that. But by comparison, Telangana is, that's why the movement in grassroots above, bottom above.
But the main-
Observations in today's world, I
Yeah.
see, I mean, may not be directly related. But what I'm seeing, I mean, I'm not in that generation, but some of you like Dinesh can speak. The virtual world which is now existing, where people are now have access to technology and, different methods of social media. I don't know what all is happening there and how much of, such getting together of groups is there, which is not visible on a theater-like physical surface. But in terms of thinking, I think lots of young people are doing a lot of things and which they probably share on their own Instagram or whatever else they do. I'm not a member of those things, but I know through my daughter what was
No,
happening.
it's very
So,
strong.
I-
It's
I
very
think-
strong amongst the youth.
Yes.
That's aware.
These things are probably what are not visible to us if we are not part of the social media scene. The second thing is a little lighter way, but the people like Salil Chaudhary and all that, for example, I was impressed to see that they protest songs rather because I'm more familiar with more popular music. But he has given music to films which you might not consider in the caliber of Robika or something. But a film like Chemin, which is based on a novel written by Kerala Conda, which is a far-breaking film, talking
Yeah.
about Muslim and this thing.
Yeah, just Ramnath here.
Let me just finish the
Yeah.
sentence. And he's provided music for that. So I don't know whether he's.
What
he could make a connection in that.
Exactly.
I'll take a more prosaic film like Nayar, for example. I don't know whether you remember this song. It's about villagers who are now fighting against the advent of a railroad, and they are using that, this thing to show that they need to keep control of their land and their.
Yeah.
So there are thinkers who may not have been so, shall we say, openly intellectual, but they made these communicate with the masses things on an entertainment sphere.
They slipped it into the entertainment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They slipped it.
No, I just want to make an observation here that Salil Chaudhary had to run away from the police because he was always, he went underground because of his protest music and protest marches and his involvement in direct radicalism. So at that time when he was producing these songs, the police was running after him. Okay, so he had to be underground for many years. Then he went to Bombay. Then he created songs for Madhumati, songs for later on for Chemin and many others. His social consciousness, his realism, etc., remained with him. But the protest songs that he had created at that time did create a lot of trouble for Mr. Salil Chaudhary. So his music was unparalleled. He carried himself to a different genre. Same with Ritik Ghatak and many others. Shambhu Mito created a new generation, new kind of theatre, absolutely. So they had this thing, they had to leave it behind because of political pressure. They had to run away, they were underground. Even Utpal Dutt went and made funny comedy films because the police caught him and put him in jails many times, and finally he had to really run away to Bombay in order to escape because it was heavy-handed, police and political intervention which forced them to give up a lot of things that they really wanted to pursue with passion.
I'm reminded of two Tamil films those days, a fast-breaking guy called Jayakant. I don't know if you remember this. Arka and one more film. That was the other one. But he tackled issues like this. I mean, they were not box office things and all that, but they were definitely for different process. So, I mean, it's not to say IPTA has you have focused and given us a lot of background about that. But we can see that similar movements are probably there in different parts of the country. Kerala certainly, not in the way it was in Karnataka, not through theatre, but through the writings of many things. I mean, we have read some of the Kerala authors too. I don't know if you remember.
I have something to add here. One of the reasons why the Bengal Renaissance and the IPTA becomes relevant on the national plane is because Bengali creations in whichever form did not remain only in Bengal. They affected North India. See, Bengal has a direct connect through Banaras and spreads to North India. But not only then, even before that, whenever anything used to get created in Bengal, it would directly come to Banaras and spread through the plains. So, whereas here you had a very strong, you had it's a different reality actually below Godavari. It becomes a different world.
Yeah,
so that is how Bengal, it's a huge part of the country that gets affected.
It was the colonial capital. One of the main reasons was that.
See the whole,
Yeah,
the,
that's true.
the national movement spreads, the freedom movement spreads from Bengal to North India. The Bengali writers who get translated into Malayalam are translated not from Bengali but from Hindi. So from Bengali, it used to get translated into Hindi and then it used to come to Malayalam. Malayalam translation word was huge, right? You know, like from the beginning. So that is how it becomes nationally relevant. And yes, you talk. So the IPTA actually spreads. It's not just, it's like those days.
No, actually, IPTA was born in Bombay. IPTA was born in Bombay.
What we are talking about right now is not Bengal as in West Bengal. We are talking about Bengal presidency.
Yes.
Which is Bengal, Bihar, Assam, all of that. It's like a
Odisha.
huge area we are talking about.
No, what I'm trying to say is IPTA, I just did a Bengal chapter because I know more of it. I don't know the others. I actually asked everybody to respond before coming here. What I tried to bring about is the origin of such a movement, which was expected to be pan-India and bring in diverse voices cutting across class, caste, region, language, gender. And what I finally just want to add, Preeti, just want to add one thing, Preeti, that Gandhi wanted to bring out the concept of free India, one India. The intellectuals there of, the cultural intellectual, the artists, the leftists, they felt, I'm not making glorious things, glorious bastards, the communists. No, I'm not talking like that. I'm saying what they were saying is, no, rukiye, please wait one sec. We want one India after freedom, but please listen to the various problems we have, various disparate voices that we have, that will come up immediately after. It is already there, immediately after. So it cannot be one homogeneous concept of India that you are trying to project, Mr. Gandhi.
And that we can see now, because what happens
Yeah.
now is politically, it is either Gandhi or us.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas it was never just Gandhi.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I mean, when I listening to your presentation takes me, a lot of memories get jogged as to the kind
Yeah.
of songs my mother learned in her school. What was that culture? You know,
Yeah.
you mentioned Naya Daur, the films that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just talked
Nicha
about.
Nagar, Naya Daur,
When
Do
we
Biga Zameen.
grew up with
Yeah.
so much artistic expression,
Absolutely.
which kind of encompasses a lot of people's voices. You know,
Yeah.
there's so much polyphony going on there.
Yeah.
Whereas when we look at the political front, it is always, black, white, red, green. It's always a binary that we see. But in the artistic world, what they grew up with,
Yeah.
I mean, Ramnath will maybe remember more because.
Yes, see, Chetananand was involved. Khwaja Ahmed Abbas was involved. Bimal Rai was involved. Balraj Sahni was involved in the IPTA. So when they made Nicha Nagar, Naya Daur and Do Biga Zameen, it made headlines in all the Grand Prix and all the Cannes and all, and they won prizes, jury international prizes. If I talk about that portion, which I've written also, again it will take another some
I
time.
just want to add.
Yeah, please.
So there is this. So there was this, I just looked up.
She's the Kathakar.
I forgot, I've even watched the movie, but I forgot the name in Telugu. So at that time, what happened, like when my dad was growing up, dad's now 85. So there was also a lot of, my dad's uncle was a card carrying communist who was a journalist with the Hindu. So, and he had to go underground. So they, at that point, they were all involved in making a very satirical movie, which was extremely left-driven. So in that, because apart from the social movies that you got, you had land reclamation movies, but you also had suddenly this Pativrata movies going on. So with all this, in this cauldron, these guys made, it's a phenomenal movie which has to do with labor, labor and farming. And in that there is a song, it says, so they are all believe, you said God will take care, no, God will take care of the monsoon, God will take care of your farm. So this farmer gets mad. So he's singing a song, he says, Cheteki Chetulidu Gananada, no Parakunte Otu Petu Ganana. So it means you get on, he's asking Ganesha, because he's the one who's the breaker of all. I mean, he's the first god you pray to. So he said, you go climb on a tree, Gananatha, leave your hands and let's see if you will fall or you won't. Or not. So, and then what they would do, they would start adding. Okay, so Shiva Murti with Gananana, you Shivani Kumar. So there's when there's a pachadi. Chintakaya is
Fully.
but raw tamarind. So the raw tamarind has to be eaten carefully. So there is if that fiber gets stuck in your throat, so Gananada, if you eat this raw tamarind, if that thing gets in your throat, I mean, who will come and save you? You will definitely die. So it is an absolute satire, and it ends off with very bad. So he says, same Gananada, you take your finger and put it into the rear end of a donkey. So will you see if it will kick you or not? Take your finger and put it into the rear end of your donkey. Will it kick you or will it kick you up? Or will it leave you alone? So it was actually banned that.
This was in a movie.
It was in a movie.
From what, 1940s?
I forget.
They did bring these.
And they banned that movie.
Of course.
Because your first is Gananatha and you're saying stuff like this. Because it was completely antithetical to the what it was a lot of stuff. The feudal aspect was still there. Landlords were still very strong, and the farmers were still dying. So, and this was made by a whole lot of communists. And one of my great grandfathers had to go underground for this.
You see, I thought somebody would bring up the subject of Prithvi Theatre. Somebody should have brought the subject of Prithvi Theatre and the involvement of Prithviraj Kapoor and Shashi Kapoor in making Prithvi Theatre. It was phenomenal. Yeah. So again, another. So a lot of topics you can just go on contributing, thinking, and I think you will come up with more stories, very hilarious and also very inspirational. I think so. See, what we see today is we have already gone through 100 years almost, 80 years almost. But when it started, it was completely different. It was gods and goddesses, mythological figures and princes and princesses, satires, maybe some historical figures. And music was also devotional, this and that, but it changed completely. Even the photography, the lightning, Taposh Shane, the photography, the sculptures and all the sculptors that have come out, the painters, they did completely different work after that. I mean, over a period of time, they understood the social consciousness required, the artistic responsibility that is required. Earlier, it wasn't that. Very interesting. Yeah. It's endless.
Okay, they are making this. Sure, thank you so much. So you stay connected by us. Thank you so much. Bye, Monica. Everybody is waiting for outside.
No.
You could have brought him for the meeting, Monica. You could have just sat here.